Imagine a world without smartphones, without a device to instantly connect you to anyone, anywhere. That's where our tale begins. Picture prehistoric times when our ancestors used smoke signals to send messages across vast landscapes. Visualize a time when carrier pigeons, with their keen sense of direction, were our fastest messaging service. Now, fast forward to the year 1837. The communication landscape was about to be transformed forever. But as groundbreaking as it was only the first step. The telegraph was revolutionary, but it was just the beginning of a communication evolution that would change the world. Enter Alexander Graham Bell, a man whose invention would transform the way we communicate. This brilliant mind, born in the heart of Scotland in the year 1847, dedicated his early years to the study of sound. His fascination stemmed from the influence of his father, a speech therapist, and his mother, who was hard of hearing. These personal connections sparked Bell's relentless pursuit to improve communication. After moving to North America, Bell's journey took a pivotal turn. He began experimenting with telegraphy, the leading communication technology of the time. But Bell envisioned something grander, a device that could transmit not just coded messages, but the human voice itself. In the mid-1870s, Bell, along with his assistant Thomas Watson, worked tirelessly on this radical idea. Their countless hours of toil led to the creation of a device that would forever change the world: the telephone. The defining moment came on March 10, 1876. Bell, in one room, spoke into the telephone's transmitter, uttering the historic words, "Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you." These words traveled over a wire to another room where Watson was waiting. The receiver in Watson's hand vibrated, and he heard Bell's voice. It was the first successful telephone call, a moment that marked the dawn of a new era in communication. Yet, it wasn't an easy journey. Bell faced numerous challenges, including patent disputes and skepticism about the device's practicality. But he persevered, believing in the potential of his invention. The telephone revolutionized the way people communicated. It allowed voices to travel across cities, countries, and eventually, the globe. Conversations were no longer restricted by the constraints of time and space. They could happen anytime, anywhere. It was a leap forward that would pave the way for the communication technologies we rely on today. With the invention of the telephone, communication was no longer limited by distance. And so, the tale of the telephone began, reshaping our world and the way we connect with each other. The invention of the telephone was groundbreaking, but it was only the start. The real challenge was creating a network to connect everyone. With the telephone's invention in the late 19th century, communication was about to take a giant leap forward. But the telephone wasn't much use if you couldn't connect to anyone else. Enter the telephone companies. Businesses sprang up with the sole purpose of connecting people, not just within cities, but across the entire country. They began by laying miles upon miles of telephone lines, a truly Herculean task. These lines formed the backbone of the telephone network, connecting homes, businesses, and public spaces. But the vision was grander than just one country. The aspiration was to connect the world. And so, under the oceans, across deserts, and over mountains, telephone lines were laid. It was a feat of engineering and human determination that took decades to accomplish. These networks of lines, both over and under land and sea, allowed for a level of global connection never seen before. People could now interact with others across vast distances in real time. The world suddenly became a lot smaller. By the mid-20th century, the telephone had become a household necessity. It was no longer just a luxury for the few, but a vital tool for communication for the many. And the world has never looked back since. The next big leap in communication came with the invention of the mobile phone. It was the 70s, and technology was taking a bold stride into the future. The first mobile phone call was made in 1973, marking a new era of communication. This first phone was a far cry from the sleek, pocket-sized devices we use today. It was large, heavy, and not at all portable. But it was revolutionary. It was the beginning of a new wave of communication. The first mobile phones were more like bricks than the elegant devices we know today. They were large, clunky, and heavy, a symbol of status rather than an everyday necessity. But as technology evolved, so did these devices. As the 80s rolled around, mobile phones started to become more compact and user-friendly. They were still a luxury, but they were beginning to make their way into the hands of the average consumer. The 90s saw the introduction of the first truly portable phones. These devices were small enough to fit in your pocket, and they were affordable enough for the average person to own. It was during this time that mobile phones started to become a staple in everyday life. People were no longer tied to their landlines. They could take their conversations on the go, and the world became a smaller place. The turn of the millennium brought with it a wave of innovation. Mobile phones were no longer just for calls. They were for texting, browsing the internet, and so much more. The smartphone was born, and it changed everything. We went from bulky bricks to sleek devices that could do almost anything. In the span of a few decades, mobile phones have gone from being a luxury to being a necessity. They have changed the way we communicate, the way we work, and the way we live. They have made the world a smaller place, and they have made communication more accessible than ever before. Mobile phones made communication portable, and the world became even smaller. We've come a long way from smoke signals and carrier pigeons, but the evolution of communication isn't over. Imagine this, a world where you can step into a virtual reality space and have a face-to-face conversation with someone thousands of miles away. That's the sort of future we're looking at with the advent of augmented and virtual reality technologies. They promise to make our interactions more immersive, more personal, taking us beyond the constraints of physical distance. And let's not forget artificial intelligence. As AI grows more sophisticated, we'll be seeing it play a bigger role in our everyday communication. We're talking about intelligent virtual assistants that can understand and respond to our needs, perhaps even before we know them ourselves. And it's not all about convenience. AI could also help us bridge language barriers, making global communication smoother than ever. But while these technologies offer exciting possibilities, they also present challenges. How do we ensure that our virtual interactions remain authentic and meaningful? How do we maintain our privacy in an increasingly connected world? These are questions that we'll need to grapple with as we shape the future of communication. Who knows what the future holds? One thing is certain, the story of communication is far from over.